Why don't you help me out and give a warm Rock and Roll Hall of Fame welcome to the one and only Robert Kool Bell. Yeah, welcome to Cleveland, right? No doubt.
Happy to be here. Although I was born in Youngstown, Ohio, I could have walked to Cleveland before
That's
I got
right.
to Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
That's right.
But
Jersey City
much.
by way of Youngstown, Ohio, right?
Yeah.
So it's good to have you back. And let me just say, we are so excited that you guys are getting inducted finally into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Thank you.
So what is this moment like for you, Kool, to think that, you know, after all these years, now coming here to Cleveland, and I'm glad it's here in Cleveland this year to bring you in and get inducted into the Rock Hall. What does that feel like?
I feel very good about it. It's kind of bittersweet because my original members, we started off with 7.
7
and
originally,
all of them has passed. And I'm still here. And it's great, you know, that we have been able to come and do what we're doing. Rock and roll, right? We worked with Kid Rock, Elton John, Van Halen, Dave Matthews. Yeah. Now, that's rock and roll, right?
Right.
It's called the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. We said, well, when they gonna give us some love? You know? But to answer your question, Jason, it feels great that we finally made it. You know.
Awesome.
Thank you.
I have to say, too, I really enjoyed when you guys got nominated this year on your social media and YouTube again and all that. You had a great series of videos about reasons to induct Kool and the Gang. And they were 20 videos. They're still up there. I highly recommend you go check them out. They're a lot of fun. And the ones that particularly stood out for me is that one of them was, let's see, number 4, which was you guys had amazing radio play. Like, you know, throughout the years, 50 years of the career, you couldn't get away from Kool and the Gang on the radio throughout all 50 of those years. And the great thing about that video is Roxanne Shante, one of the great first female hip-hop rappers, is in that video. Number 19 was the Kool and the Gang live shows, which were amazing, right? And still are amazing. They're still out there touring and playing. In fact, we were just talking about you literally just came from a show a few days ago, right? But number 10, the number 10 reason to vote for Kool and the Gang was Robert Kool Bell. I like that you had your own video. That was just number 10, cool.
Well, it was cool to be cool.
Yeah, no doubt, right. You know, and in the end of the day, too, we have a fan vote where fans can go online and vote for the nominees they want to see. And you guys made the fan ballot. You were one of the most voted for by the fans out there saying they wanted to see Kool and the Gang inducted in the Rock Hall. So congratulations on that as well.
Well, you know, we thank our fans for that, for supporting us for so many years. Yeah. Through the ups and downs, because the music business is not just that easy, you know. Sometimes you're up, sometimes you're down. We was able to stay up for a while until we went down. We got down on it. And then we went back up again. Yeah, we're thankful for that.
I think what you just said is actually a great way to describe what I think is amazing about the kind of resiliency of your career, right? That every artist is going to have those up and downs and those moments.
Right.
You guys would be at the peak and then maybe would, you know, slide a little bit, but you always found a way. Never count Kool and the Gang down. You guys found a way to come back, to revitalize that career, to get another hit, another great record, and you just kept moving forward. It was really, was that something you guys thought about during your career, like always trying to find out how to get back on the charts, get back with great music for your fans?
Well, what you just said, Jason, every 10 years, every decade, they counted it out. Are they going to make it to the 60s, to the 70s, to the 80s, to the 90s? But we was always able to come back with the right song. Of course, with the support of the fans, you know, and we're still here today. And we're thankful for that. I mean, as I was telling you earlier, we just came from Tanzania, Serengeti. That was the real jungle boogie. because there was real animals out there. We were just there about 4 days ago.
Yeah.
And then we kept saying, we got to make it to Cleveland
Yeah.
for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, man.
I kid you not. We're sitting in the green room earlier, if you don't mind me telling this. And he says, we're playing the show, out in we were at this hotel in the middle of the jungle, right? And you said to me, we're playing in front of a pool and we had to wait to perform before the elephants left the area. And I said, that can't be right. And he pulls out his phone and there it is. The elephants walking right past the venue where you were, right?
Yeah, right in front of the pool where they built this stage. The elephants come and they drink the water. And it was full of elephants. We couldn't go on until after they left. We didn't want to play Jungle Boogie, and they got wild and tore up the stage. Imagine 20 elephants running the real. I ain't talking about no Jungle Boogie. I'm talking about the real thing. Yeah. Yeah. But it was great. It was a great experience, and we're happy to be back.
Yeah, awesome. We're so glad to have you here. I always thought it was a brilliant move. December of 1969, that first record comes out, Kool and the Gang. And what a brilliant idea. The band's called Kool and the Gang. The album's Kool and the Gang. And then that hit instrumental was Kool and the Gang. I mean, that was kind of branding and marketing before people really knew what that was. Was that something you guys had worked up to try and just get your name out there and find a connection with audiences?
Well, we started off as the Jazzy Acts,
Yeah, Jazzy Acts.
the Soul Town Band.
Right, you guys were doing almost like a Motown review style show,
Oh, yeah,
right?
we used to have to learn those Motown songs because the groups in Jersey City were singing Motown. They called themselves the Soul Town Review. Yeah. So we became the Soul Town Band. And then in 1969, we said, well, we can't use the name Kool and the Flames because we don't want to have any problems with the Godfather. So Gene Red said, so we said, what are we going to call ourselves? So Gene said, well, what about Kool and the Gang? And that's how it started, and that's how it happened. Album, Kool and the Gang, group name Kool and the Gang, and the single Kool and the Gang. Yeah.
So how did that happen after all those years of playing jazz and playing some of the Motown kind of soul review stuff? And tell us a little bit about working with Gene Red. So you guys were able to get in the studio. I think you recorded that album in New York, right? Is that right?
Yes, we did.
Yeah. What was that like, that relationship with Gene when you first started? Because it seems like he was a big part of helping you guys figure that out in the beginning.
Well, Gene is the one that wanted to take us to the commercial level, more commercial than what we were doing with the jazzy thing, or like my brother was John Coltrane and the different artists that we were listening to. So Gene made us more commercial. I remember Gene Red, we was playing at the Apollo Theater, and he said, now, when you move, you got to spell out K, O, O, and L. Yeah. I said, okay, how we go about doing that? But it worked. The Apollo Theater, it worked.
Yeah, I mean, that's some of that important part of figuring out a stage presence for the band. And you guys, again, became such a great live band. Was that... How long were you kind of playing gigs as Kool and the Gang until you started feeling that right vibe you were trying to create on stage? Did it take a while?
Well, I would say around the time of the Wild and Peaceful days. We had songs like Funky Granny, Chocolate and Buttermilk, Raw Hamburgers. But it was when we the record company came to us and said, listen, you guys have been doing okay. You're territorial, Virginia, Maryland, He said, but I think you guys need a producer. We said, oh, yeah? So Soul Makusa was out, right? And Margo DeBongo was the bango. We met with their producer, and we really wasn't feeling him. So we went to a studio called Baggies, and we went in there at 8 o'clock in the morning, and we came out at midnight. We created funky stuff, jungle boogie, and Hollywood swinging. No more problems from the record company. And then the next album, we did Summer Madness, Lighter Worlds, and, it just continued. Then you had Open Sesame, with John Travolta, and, things just started to grow.
Well, I always think the interesting thing too about your albums, if you take that first album, Kool and the Gang, the next two albums that come out are live albums. And I always thought that's an interesting move for a band, right? You've only got one studio album out, and then you're going to release two live albums, right? And of course, the first one, Live at the Sex Machine from 1971, and then Live at PJ's. Any memories you have of playing at those clubs in particular, or recording those albums about those two live records? Because the sound on them is fantastic. You really can hear you guys cooking as a band on those two records.
Well, the Sex Machine album was in Philadelphia.
Okay.
I do remember one thing. It was cold in there because he didn't pay for the gas bill in that studio.
Oh, no.
But we created, which is to alignment. Spike played trumpet on. And I think Let Your Music Take Your Mind was there. Yeah. Now, going out to the West Coast with PJs was a little different, some of the songs that we had on there, we had a string section, and that was, from Philly to L.A. What you got to say? Hollywood swinging, baby. Come on.
Right. It's funny you mentioned even Dave Matthews Band earlier, because I think this class this year, there's a lot of artists that are just fantastic live performers. I mean, you guys have had an incredible career as live musicians. Cher, Dave Matthews Band, Jimmy Buffett, right, who had an incredible career playing live, and even Peter Frampton, who one of his most famous records is Frampton Comes Alive, a live record. So it's just awesome to think of all these bands this year that were such connected to live performance.
We played on a couple of shows in Europe with Peter Frampton.
Is that right?
Yeah.
That would be a cool bill to see you guys all playing together. Did he come out or play with you guys, or did you?
No, it was him, and then we came on after him.
Yeah.
Or vice versa. But another one was Foreigner.
Yeah.
We played with Foreigner, a couple of shows with Foreigner. And so that was good too.
Right. Well, if you don't mind, I wanted to play one of the songs from Live at the Sex Machine, because it's just, I want to let the audience feel a little bit of that, and that's Funky Man. So let's take a listen to it, and then maybe we could talk a little bit about it. So let's take a listen to Funky Man. Don't be afraid to turn it up, Paul.
Funky Man! You better run, 'cause he's gonna blow your mind! Funky Man. Sock it to me, Funky Man.
What's happening?
Nothing. My name is the Funky Man.
Funky Man.
What's happening, baby? Man, you can't do nothing with me, 'cause I'm funky.
Listen here.
All right.
Man, when I hear you and George just laying down that rhythm section, man, that has just such a great groove that everybody's playing over the top of. Any memories of that song at all, of playing Funky Man live?
Well, again, we were just having fun. That's my brother on there talking about, here comes the Funky Man.
Yeah, that's Khalees on there? Yeah.
That's Cully's. And with the horns, he was very dynamic in his style of playing, and with the horn players in the horn section. And George and I were trying to be funky, just laying the bass. Hey, watch out, here comes the Funky Man. That's how we did it, though. That's how we did it back then. We come up with ideas and names, and we created,
Where did it normally start? Did you guys start with like a groove, or did you think of kind of arrangements first? Was Khalees thinking of horn parts, or was it different every time, like when you created the songs?
Well, it would start with a groove. I mean, the foundation is the drums, the bass, then the keyboards, and then the guitars, and then come them horns. Them horns was something else, man. I ain't bragging about it, but yeah. But I am. My brother was a great writer when it comes to horn parts.
Yeah. Did he write out a lot of the horn parts for the band too?
No, we just played them.
Just played it? Yeah.
Yeah. We didn't go to school for none of that. Yeah. You had to feel the funk, feel the groove.
Yeah, right.
And that's
right.
how it happened back then.
That's awesome. I mean, because a lot of bands, especially horn bands, will write it out so they all know. But like the fact that you guys, they were all playing those great riffs and harmonies together and everything, but just doing it, from hearing it, that's amazing. Yeah.
That's a blessing as well. Yeah. To be able to do that.
Right, right. I wanted to play one other one too, because it's something that was mentioned in the video, and you mentioned, you guys started as the Jazzy Acts and that, right? Off of the album Good Times from 1972, there's a beautiful song that Khalees wrote on there, I Remember John Coltrane. And I just want to play a little bit of that so we can hear him, and I think he's playing the horn on here, right? The sax on this part.
Okay.
All right, let's take a listen to that. I Remember John Coltrane. Beautiful.
Well, like I said, my brother was into John Coltrane, and some of the tracks we done, people know us by doing more of the dance stuff. We had a lot of different songs that was kind of jazzy, kind of a different approach to it. Yeah.
That's one of the reasons I like that song, is you think, of all the massive hits you've had in the dance music, but, Kool and the Gang was able to do that type of track, a real tribute to Coltrane that tapped into his style, and again, beautiful sax playing on there too. I mean, it's great. And was that something you guys came up together specifically? Was Khalees thinking about kind of, his connection to Coltrane?
Charles Smith. Yeah. He was into West Montgomery.
Yeah.
Those guitar parts that Charles came up with. I remember seeing an interview with Prince, and he says he started playing guitar, trying to play funky stuff. He's trying to figure out how did Charles play those licks.
Yeah, right.
Ricky West, he was into Herbie Hancock. So, from the jazz to the funk to where we are today. And to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. My God.
Well, now we'll get to the record you mentioned before, and I will tell you, I literally wrote in my notes, this record is the bomb. It's wild and peaceful, right? 1973. When you look at that record and you realize that on the first side is Funky Stuff, Jungle Boogie, and Hollywood Swingin', that is 3 songs. Each one of them alone could have gotten you inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but they're all on side 1 of that album, man.
Yes.
Now, is the story, because I've heard this told before, that when you guys just went into the studio, that stuff you were saying, you went in at like 8 in the morning, you came out at like kind of midnight, and you wrote all of that material and recorded most of that stuff in one day? Is that really true? And you were just kind of working on it?
That is what happened with Wild and Peaceful. Yeah. Our backs was against the wall. So we had to get down on it and come up with some real funky stuff.
Right.
And that's what we did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was the thought process there? Like, were you trying to find a particular sound? Because when I hear it, of course, that record has such a unique sound that is essentially Kool and the Gang. What was in your mind when you were trying to figure it out?
Well, we went there and we just started grooving in the beginning, playing songs, groups, and they just started to come together. The titles came a little later. Jungle Boogie was, it was Hollywood Swingin'. Ricky West was a major writer on that, And
that's Ricky singing that one too, right?
Yeah, but he called the song Jaco. I said, Jaco, what? Oh, shit. Jaco ended up in Hollywood. Hollywood Swinger. We wrote a song about Hollywood Swinger. It took us a while to get a star in Hollywood, too.
Yeah, right.
Said, we wrote a song about it. Come on, put us up there. Right. Hollywood was swinging, and it's still swinging, right? Yeah, right. Okay.
Now, were you were out there living, were you living in Hollywood at that point in time, right?
No, we would go out there, and, there was a place where we used to stay for about a month and come up with music and do little gigs around L.A., yeah. But George Brown, he lived in Hollywood. Okay. Yeah.
Well, I mentioned it in my intro, so we got to play a minute of this just because, again, I particularly think, Kool, of your bass lines and the way they kind of hold down and anchor a lot of these songs. So let's take a listen to Hollywood Swinging from Wild and Peaceful.
What you got to say? Say, hey, hey, hey. What you got to say? Hollywood, Hollywood swinging. Hollywood swinging. I remember.
Oh, I hate to cut Ricky off, but we can't stay here all night.
Well, the next part was not too long ago. What this here, a Kool and the Gang show. All right, go ahead.
That is if you want to give somebody a good example of a bass line that locks a song in, that swings, that anchors it, and it's so simple, Kool, right?
Yeah.
Boom, 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 ba-na-na, right? But that
Right.
line draws you in, man. Were you writing a lot of those like first on the bass and then the band kind of filling it around? You mentioned that like a lot of the drum and bass parts were first.
Yeah, well, that's how we did it. You know, George might play a certain beat or something. Yeah. Ricky, like with the Hollywood swinging, and Nile Rodgers was Spike's first cousin.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
And he said that his song "Good Times" came from Hollywood swinging.
Yeah, I could hear it for sure.
Yeah.
That influence on the sound. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing. The next album in 1974, Light of the World, again has another one of those signature tunes that's very different, right? Which is Summer Madness. And of course, this is where I want to talk to you a little bit about too, because it's tracks like these suddenly that years and years later are going to get sampled by some of hip hop's biggest artists. And of course, Summertime Madness sampled by DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince, right? For Summertime. I mean, it's really the backing of the entire track of that. How did you feel when suddenly you realized a lot of hip hop artists were starting to sample your music?
Well, first of all, Will Smith did a great job on that. Yeah. He didn't do too much sampling. He just rapped over the track.
That's true. He literally did, right?
#1 record, platinum. Yeah. And he moves on to be a movie star. But that particular song definitely was Summer Madness, and Summertime was great. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you start to wonder, like, what's going on here? Why are all these people suddenly writing songs to our music? Or were you excited by it? Were you kind of not so sure about it?
We were feeling it. It wasn't until they passed a law that in order to do a sample, you have to get okay from the record company.
Right.
Because we heard a lot of different things. I started putting somebody on Sample Patrol. Catch that lick, man. What's that? Right. But now, you know, we're nominated to 50 years, most sampled band in 50 years of hip-hop. Yeah. Which makes us the most sampled band in the world, because hip-hop dominated. I mean, they did something with Madonna did something, a few other artists sampled little pieces of our music, you know. even Kid Rock did a little sample, a little piece of Love and Understanding.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
There's even moments like if you go back to that Live at the Sex Machine, the song, I think that's when it has NT on it, I think. That drum break in the middle of NT is on like 100 different hip hop records, that one little drum break from there that George plays. Yeah.
Questlove told me that. He said, man, you have been sampled 1,800 times. I said, what? 1,800 times what? He said, yeah, but a lot of those little samples of the drums, NT was one of them. Yeah.
I'm going to write down somewhere, put someone on sample patrol. I like that idea. We got to get someone who wants that job. Like Kool and the Gang now hiring for sample patrol. Find all the songs. Right, because you're right. You mentioned in the early days, people could just use it and they didn't need to get your permission.
You wouldn't get paid for it.
You wouldn't get paid for
anything
it.
like that.
Yeah. But then eventually, once they kind of fix that, now most artists like yourself, they have to acknowledge they've taken it from your music and they have to pay you royalties for it, which is great.
Yeah, well, I'm very thankful to the hip-hop world, you know.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that in the 70s, we didn't have any of these singers, no singers on our music.
Right.
So it opened the door for someone to grab different little licks. Yeah. You know, that's why a lot of the artists from the hip-hop world said, man, we're thankful for what you did. Because you played that funk, you played them licks, and shoot. If you listen to my son told me so many artists that have sampled our music, you know, which I didn't know about. I know we're just doing what we love, and that was one of the things that happened for us.
Yeah, that's right, because a lot of your songs are either instrumentals or have the kind of group vocals where you're singing a kind of main melody or a thing over the center, but a lot of it is each of you taking solos or playing different licks. Yeah, it's great. The groove is so good, it's perfect to grab, right?
Well, the artist, I forget his name right now, but he took the beginning of Hollywood singing, da 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 da, let me clear my throat. You know? Yeah. So there was a lot of different artists sampling our music.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because it brings your music to like a whole new generation at that point, too. A lot of the people who I think maybe hear the hip-hop songs and then go back and hear your albums and kind of rediscover that music. If you kind of go into, I think, that early phase is all of that groove and funk and music. By the time we get to 1976, another album you mentioned briefly, which is Open Sesame. And the incredible thing about that is the song Open Sesame ends up on the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack. And that is a worldwide, massive selling album. It defines the sound of disco. And you guys were front and center with that sound. And, you know, when you listen to, you're kind of headed in a direction where you're starting to maybe lock into what disco is going to become. And, you know, Nile Rodgers and others like you mentioned. But what was that like? Because that had to be suddenly a moment where the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack took you in a different direction than where you were going before.
Well, Saturday Night Fever, over 20 million records, you know, with the PGs and other artists that were on there. And until Michael Jackson came up with Thriller, we were the Thriller.
That was the best selling, yeah, right.
They knocked us out of the box, you know. But it was a good, you have John Travolta on the dance floor, you know. It was all quite interesting.
Right, because in the movie, that's in one of the dance competition scenes, right?
Yes. And, you know, my brother, listening to Earth, Wind, and Fire, he said, I got to put a track on the floor that it's on the one, and then the horns are more jazzy. That swing, too. He took swing, put it on the one, and came up with Open Sesame.
That's interesting, right? It's a combination of that kind of jazzy horns, the James Brown on the one, but also the disco four on the floor at the same time, right?
Yeah.
Well, let's listen to a little bit of that because I love the opening of that too. Oh, you were waiting for that one, right? Yeah. All right. So let's take a little bit of a listen, Paul, to the Open Sesame there.
Groove with the genie.
This is the part 2 one because I like this with the groove with the genie. Get Down with the Genie.
Yeah, thank you.
That's awesome. When you started doing that one while I was playing, I heard it. You could feel that
Yeah,
kind of
swing.
rhythm you guys were
You
going
can
for.
swing it or you can play it straight. Just listen to the horns. That's Curtis Williams out there. That's my music director out there, Curtis. Boy.
Yeah. As the MD, you got to make sure they still got that groove, right?
Yeah, he does too.
Yeah, what an incredible song. And again, like featured in the film, on the soundtrack, it really brought you guys to a whole new audience. And then over the next couple records, you know, The Force and Everybody's Dancing, you could hear you starting to find a little bit of a different sound. And by the time we get to 1979, of course, the album Ladies' Night comes out, right?
Right.
Ladies' Night is a massive record because you both end up working for the first time with the producer Amir Deodato,
Yes.
who really helps you define a new sound. And of course, James JT Taylor comes on as a singer. It's the first time you're kind of getting a lead singer in the band, like you said, right?
Right. Well, we had been out with the Jackson 5, and a guy by the name of Dick Griffey said, "You guys are doing great, you know, on the tour." And then he says, "Well, I think you need a lead singer." And we said, "What?" He said, "I think you need a lead singer." So we thought about it. Lionel Richie, the Commodores, Earth, Wind and Fire, Philip Bailey, Maurice White. I said, "Yeah, I think we need a lead singer." And JT he came. We were working at the House of Music in Jersey, and we didn't audition. Nobody else. He came in, and my brother played some jazz chords and then a little funk. And he said, "You sound like a young Nat King Cole." He said, "What? Too hot." Okay, and that's when we got the lead singer. Now, Ladies' Night came out because I was hanging out in New York at Studio 54 in
Oh, yeah.
Exchange. And my wife and I.
Very nice. Thank you, Kool. Nice work.
And there was a Ladies' Night. So, I said, that could be a good track. I went back and told my brother. George Brown was writing the track. And I said, I got a title. He said, "What?" I said, "A Ladies' Night." He said, "Wow, they got one of those all over the world."
Yeah, right.
And that was our first song we recorded. Frankie Crocker broke that record in New York, and it was Ladies' Night. But the tail end of that came Celebration, which my brother also came up with the music for that.
Yeah. And again, that's a track that still to this day is played. Like you said, there's still Ladies' Nights everywhere. That track is played all the time, right? And I think it used in a ton of movies in that as well.
Yes, it has been, yeah.
Yeah. What was it like working with Deodato as a producer? Did that change the way you guys thought about working in the studio at all?
Well, yeah, Deodato definitely was helpful in that area. One of the things that happened with Celebration, Deodato brought in a 40-piece orchestra to put on the track. And so, as they was mixing it down, my brother said, "Well, what are they doing?" They took the strings out. He took everything out of it. He said, "This is the groove. That guitar in the front, that's the song." My brother was so upset. He said, "Listen, I'll give you a tape with just the strings, okay? This is the hit. This is the record. Celebration." And that's what happened.
Ah, that's wild. You think too, that album, those two back to back, right? So you've got 1979 Ladies' Night, 1980 Celebration or Celebrate, right, which has Celebration on it. I think that period for me is where you guys figured out how to not only take that early funky stuff and the disco things you'd been experimenting with, but turn it into just this incredible dance music. And joyful music is what I love about it, right? You listen to those two records, and it's just music that makes you feel good. Was that intentional? Were you thinking about trying to make good party records?
Well, I think Deodato had a lot to do with that, too.
Yeah?
Because when we found out Deodato was going to produce the album, you know, we said, "Oh, Deodato, the jazz side and all that, we're going to have all that going on now."
Right.
Deodato said, You got to make room for the lead singer now, because the horns was like the lead singers.
Oh, right.
So we had to
sure.
open up the track for JT.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that really changes the way you think of arranging it, right? Well, I was going to play a song from one of those. Should we let the audience maybe vote on which one we listen to just to hear a little bit of it? What do you think? Ladies' Night, Celebration, or we could do Too Hot, which is Too Hot? All of them? It's the Kool and the Gang listening party tonight. Maybe let's do Too Hot, just because that's a good example where I think the arrangement sounds a little bit different from what you had done before, too.
Yes.
All right, let's take a listen to Too
That
Hot.
was the great George Brown, too, who wrote that track.
There's that bass line holding it down again, right?
The guitar, Charles with West Montgomery. See that feel there?
At 17 we fell in love.
Oh, those
High
Rhodes
school
pianos, right?
sweethearts. Love was so brand new. We took the vows of man and wife forever for life. I remember how we made our way. A little patience, the times we prayed. Can't imagine that this love is through. Feeling the pain, girl, when you lose. Oh, it's too hot, too hot, too hot, lady. Gotta run for shelter, gotta run for shade. It's too hot, too hot, too hot, lady. Gotta cool this anger. What a mess we made so long ago. You were.
You can't stop any of these songs. This is rough.
All right.
What a beautiful sound in there. What you were saying, some of the way you guys had that guitar part coming in, right?
Oh, yes. Like I said, Charles was into West Montgomery. You can hear those little licks on Too Hot, of course. And a great story that George Brown wrote. High school sweetheart, love was so brand new. Took the vows of man and wife. Then things got a little too hot.
It happens.
That's life. But he came back with Jones versus Jones. You remember that one?
I do, yeah.
Yeah. So, that's life. That's music. That's what we're about.
A song you mentioned earlier from 1981 off of Something Special, Get Down on It. Incredible track. Another great, great dance track. I was going to ask you about that because when I hear that, it sounds like the bass line there might be like a synthesizer bass, like a Moog bass or something. Was that you playing bass like with effects on it, or was that a keyboard bass line in that song?
That was a combination of the two.
Really?
We used to mix it up. Yeah. But to get down on it, a friend of ours came to my brother and said, you ever listen to Bob Marley? He said, no, but I will. And my brother was inspired by Bob Marley to write Get Down on It.
Whoa.
Yeah,
I didn't know that story. Yeah.
yeah.
What did he tell you? Was there something he was trying to find from Bob Marley, or was it just a general kind of inspiration?
It was the reggae feel.
Yeah.
You know, of Get Down on It.
Yeah.
That's not totally reggae, but the feel of it. You know, get down on it.
Yeah.
Had a reggae feel to it.
Right.
And he came up with Get Down on It.
Yeah. Because most people would think of reggae as having that kind of upbeat reggae
Yeah,
feel, but
right,
you're
right.
talking more about like the phrasing of it, kind
Yeah.
of carrying that Bob Marley. I love that. That's
Yeah.
Well, let's take a listen to that too, because then we can listen to that sound. I'm glad you took, because that was one of the questions I had for myself. Like, well, how was that bass line put together? Take a listen to the bass sound in here. It's great. It's awesome.
Oh, what you gonna do? You wanna get down? Tell me. Oh, what you gonna do? Do you wanna get down? Oh, what you gonna do? You wanna get down? Oh, what you gonna do? You wanna get down? Tell me. Get down on it. Get down on it. Get down on it. Get down on it. Come on and get down on it. Get down on it. Get by standing on the wall. Get your back up off the wall. Tell me, how you gonna do it if you really don't wanna dance? By standing on the wall. Get your back up off the wall. 'Cause I heard all the people saying, get down on it, come on and.
I'll be honest, I never would have thought of that reggae riff, and now when I listen to it, I could even hear that little keyboard part, right? If you hear that upbeat, right? Yeah, it's there. I had never noticed that before. Really? There we go. The MD's learning something, man. But you hear it, right?
That's the MD there.
Yeah. Right? And because you're so focused on the drums and bass, I never really noticed that little upbeat bit in the keyboard. Yeah.
The keyboards, yeah.
How cool is that? That again, well, another testament to what I said when I walked out here, that Kool and the Gang's music, you can listen to it a million times and still hear new layers, new parts, new guitar licks, new vocal pieces. It's deep. There's a lot going on with you guys. That's cool. In 1983, I really think this is where you guys start to kind of come out of that disco and dance into really a kind of pop stardom. And I'll admit, this is where, for me, I was in high school in the mid-'80s, so this is where I started listening to records like, In the Heart with Joanna on it, right? Or Emergency, which is my second favorite Kool and the Gang album, because, again, 4 tracks in the beginning of that record: Emergency, Fresh, Misled, and Cherish, right?
Yep.
Like, how do you put one record with those 4 songs, on it? Amazing. What do you remember about that time period? I knew you were working with, and I'm sorry if I pronounced his name wrong. Is it Jim Bonifant that you were working with?
Yeah, Jim Bonifant.
Yeah. So that's a kind of new relationship with a new producer you're working with on both those records. And again, I think getting JT's voice really out there, but the band is still coming up with some incredible arrangements. What was that period like?
Well, Jim was an engineer with Diodato.
Right. He was Diodato's engineer on the earlier records, right?
Yeah. And we tried different things. I mean, Emergency is sort of funk rock. Yep. And then Misled was, so what's that about, Misled? What type of groove is that?
I mean, that one almost has more of like a rock groove to it, right? Yeah.
And then Cherish, we're all down in the Bahamas, Compass Point, and all our families were together, and we said, well, we have something to cherish. And we came up with JT, of course, and along with my brother and the band, came up with Cherish the Love. Became another big record for us.
This is the period where you guys were starting to make a lot of great music videos for MTV too, and I remember the Cherish video. I think has like a family on a beach kind of together.
Exactly right. That was in the video. Yeah.
Yeah, right. That was the video for it. Yeah. So that was. I didn't realize that was directly inspired by the kind of Bahamas moment that you guys had. That's cool.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And did you, at this point, think about trying to create a different image? I mean, I think there's an image even out front of the theater here that we had, with all of you now are in colorful different suits, and in the music videos, JT's kind of got that outfit. It's a little bit like Michael Jackson style, right? Like creeping in there too.
Yeah, it was a little Michael Jackson influence in there. Yeah.
I didn't mean that as a bad thing, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, and then Joanna, you mentioned that one too, huh? Now, Charles was the main writer for that. And he came up with, he wanted to call it Dear Mama, Dear Mom. And we were trying to see how to make that work in the studio. It wasn't working. So we came up with, let's come up with a mother's name or a lady's name. He said, what? Let's try Joanna. And when he went back in the studio and started singing Joanna, that was it. People said, well, Joanna, then I went all the way pop with that, with Joanna. Yeah. But Joanna was one of the most played records when it came out in the United States.
And beautiful vocal harmonies. Is that all of you guys singing behind JT on a lot of that too?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, let's listen to a little bit of that one. I think, like you said, that is, people consider that a pop song, but it's still, you can hear that Kool and the Gang essence, and it's a beautiful, beautiful song. Let's take a listen to a little bit of Joanna. Yeah.
All right. That's dedication, right?
Yeah, right.
Joanna,
Yeah.
you ain't going to cheat on her. She's the one,
One. Yeah.
the
that's
only
right.
one.
Yeah. Well, that's that thing like that great human emotion that you guys have in
Yeah.
the songs,
I
right?
think that's why it was such a popular record across the country.
Yeah, right. Because people could relate to it or connect
Yeah.
to that, right?
Yeah.
And even in there, the horns popping in, they have that great bed behind the chorus, the whole horn section coming in, that bass line of yours holding down,
A little rock lines. in
little
there
rock
too,
guitar,
right?
yeah,
With the
right?
guitar.
Yeah. Really a song. And then I remember the music video for that too. I think that was the one where you guys were in the diner, right?
Yes.
I remember Kool sitting in the back, playing the bass, leaning against the back. I remember you in that one, man.
Yeah, I couldn't get a veggie burger back then. Well, we have fun doing that video, though.
So at this point, you know, we're talking mid 80s. You guys have been at it for a long time. You're massive stars. Music videos, the records are selling by the millions. What's that like going out on tour now, right? In that time period, those tours must have been amazing, right?
They were, and we got more into the production side of it all. You know, you had George Clinton landing the mothership,
Yeah.
and all these different productions. So we had the Giant Heart with Take My Heart album.
Yeah, In the Heart, right. Yeah, the one
the
that's
Heart
on
album.
the yeah.
So it was more production, more money,
Right, more expensive
more
to go on
semi
tour.
trucks out there carrying our equipment. It was great though, man. Definitely.
Do you remember how often you were on the road? I imagine you guys were probably touring all the time back then.
Yeah, we did over 100 shows a year, all over the world. Yeah.
All over the world, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that must be a wild experience. You know, a bunch of guys who started a band in Jersey City, and now you're all over the world and performing, like you said earlier, with all these other artists at the time too, right?
Yeah, that was definitely great. Yeah.
By the end of the 80s, you've got an album like Forever, another song of mine that I love, Stone Love, that's, comes out at that time. I also really love the sound of Peacemaker on that album. I think that's a great track on there, too.
That was George Brownlee who wrote that song.
Was it? Clearly, I like George's songwriting because I keep picking George's song.
Yeah, Peacemaker, yeah.
Yeah, that's a fun track, man. There's a lot of great, unique kind of sounds that you have in there.
And his lyrics, he said, what we need is a peacemaker. You know, what was going on in the world then is still going on in the world now. We need a peacemaker now.
Sure do. Yep.
Yeah.
You're right. After that record, that's when JT decides to leave the band and kind of go his own way. What was that like for you guys? You had kind of had such success now with a lead singer. What was the conversation when JT decided to leave?
Well, I mean, JT had some problems with management, and he wanted to go out and do kind of his own thing because you had Lionel Richie went out, was successful. Michael Jackson was successful, and but I really wanted him to do your solo album, but stay with the band. Right. You know, and so that didn't quite happen, and he went his way. We went on. We went our way. Excuse me.
Yeah. What was the conversation for you guys when you decided to kind of continue on? Was there conversations about like what would the new sound be at that point?
Well, we continued to move in more markets. We're down to South America. We at that time we were just playing more France, England, you know.
Right.
Went into Italy. Went into Yugoslavia,
Wow.
Went to places other bands didn't dare to go.
Yeah, right.
But we built our market,
Yeah.
our fan base. We were building our fan base.
Yeah, all around the world, right?
Yeah.
I wanted to also point out, you know, in the last year, I think it was 2023, you guys put out People Just Want to Have Fun. And that record actually is interesting. It celebrates your 60th anniversary, 34th album. On that record, yeah, give it up for that.
Thank you.
And what I thought was really touching when you look at the recording of that record, it features some of the final recordings you had done with Khalees, with DT,
Right.
and with George Brown. Those are some of the last sessions they did and end up on that record. What was that like for you, knowing that they were gone, but trying to put that record together from all those recordings?
Well, that was pretty much the George Brown project. People just want to have fun. And it was after COVID. After 2 years with COVID, so people want to get out again. People just want to have fun. And that's when you came up with the concept of that album. After that, we went to Europe. We did 18 shows in 30 days, 10,000, 20,000, 30,000. You can see that people just wanted to have fun. They wanted to get out after COVID, and so many people dying on the planet. Yeah, that's the thing about that album.
Yeah.
That George Brown did.
Well, that comes back to what I said earlier, that your music is so much of the Kool and the Gang songs are so powerful and positive and make you feel good.
Right.
And that's what people needed at that time, right? And they still need today, right? Is that fun music that can connect with people and connect audiences. I just want to mention too, because Kool is such a great person working with charities for kids with music. In fact, you've got something called Kool Kids, is a charity you run, where you actually try and get instruments in the hands of kids, right, to learn how to play music.
Yeah, my wife, Sakina, before she passed, she wanted to bring music back into the schools. And we started working on projects at the Kool Kids Foundation. And I came up with this idea of doing that. It's cool to stay in school. That was backed by Cherry Coke. And we went to 48 states. And then we ended up in Oklahoma. So these 4 guys came up to us. He said, "Oh, we're not playing hookies from school. We're doing great. We got great grades." Yeah. And they started singing something for us in a cappella, excuse me. And so my cousin said, "Yeah, you guys sound great." Then we sent them to New York to my other cousin, and they went to the studio. And that group became Color Me Bad. Over 10 million records, giant records. Yeah.
That's a great album, right? So to know that
education, see, school, Kool to stay in school.
Yeah.
Education in school, music in schools.
Yeah. Not a bad discovery from a charity helping kids with music, right? Well, Kool, from all of us to you, again, congratulations. We can't wait for Saturday night to see Kool and the Gang over at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse getting inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Well, thank you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, let's give it up and thank you for coming out tonight. Robert Kool Bell.
Thank you. Thank you very much.